Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
I think I'm just gonna play like a song, but I don't know. Maybe just the extra one. Is that good? Yeah, that's right. I believe in a better tomorrow. Time's on my side. Time's on my side. X-Church time's on my side, you know?
Time's an illusion, but it's true. It's spirit. Source beyond space and time, no need to fear.
James will be here in a second. Noel's grabbing his pizza.
Eternal plan from beginning to end in algorithmic hands. Time's on the side. Evolutions of Christ. Universe grows, complexity's king. Humans play a hand in cosmic destiny. Butterfly effects, history twist will all be questioned.
What'd you say?
That's some sick intros, bro, I have to say. Oh.
Thanks, bro. Thanks. That wasn't even an intro. That's just a song. I was thinking about doing like a visual, but I was like, I don't even have one yet. But we should definitely make a cool Vedic AI intro for sure. I did a little AI art, some Vedic AI art, but every time I do it, I know I get your like eyebrow raised. You're like, no. That's
Kamala on the face of Lakshmi, man. That's gonna make me so like.
I wanted to show people because I felt like that was the cruelest thing I've done in a while, but I don't want to manifest it too hard.
Like sprayed raid on me or something.
I mean, the circle of life is actually a mandala anyway. No, you don't think so?
Oh, no,
you might
out of there, man.
Also, because we scrolled past it so far, this is just a mountain in World of Warcraft. All right, so your brain is cooked. All right, just saying. But
World of Warcraft.
Yeah, so don't take it too hard. It's okay if you saw something else, because I was worried if I just scrolled past this too fast.
What am I looking at? I'm seeing a mountain and
playing
with some friends.
Yeah, it's all good. Super chill. Nothing wrong with that. I don't know. So I was thinking we could actually talk a bit about Lakshmi. That might be a thing. Like why the goddess energy is kind of, not, we've talked about how it's not as it's kind of suppressed in the West. I have a new theory on all this. I saw something recently. There's a new show called Chaos with Jeff Goldblum as Zeus. Have you seen this show? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Jeff Goldblum?
Yeah.
No way.
It's kind of funny because it's like all of the Greek gods are kind of like this mafia family that like lived, and they're like incestuous royals, and
kind of lit actually.
He's married to his sister and he's got all these affairs and she's like collecting his girlfriends and turning them into bees and all this stuff. It's actually pretty good. But the vibe I get is in the Roman mythology, you had a pantheon of family, and this is not too different than a lot of places. Like the Hindus have
I'm no expert in anything.
No, for sure. But like, just it seems to me like from what we've seen even from Disney movies, they've got a family, and the Hindus have a family of gods, right? And what happens is Zeus is constantly abated by his wife Hera, who's ruining it for him. Hey, I think James is here. What's up, James?
Yeah.
You know the Greek pantheon thing, and Zeus is dealing with his sister he's married to. It's like horrible to be married to your sister because he's got all these other girlfriends and she's destroying it for him. So eventually, it feels like, am I wrong? They break up. Is that not monolatry of the Judeo-Christian religion? Is just sort of like the Zeus is a divorced a father, a divorcee who's now kind of running the show, because we don't like to think of it as Christianity is in the tradition of this Zeus thing, but isn't that every picture of the Christian god they draw? They make him look like Zeus. So really, it's just Zeus after he's broken up with his wife and broken up the pantheon, and you're not allowed to worship any of them anymore.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, it's basically Zeus, right? Because Christ is actually kind of Dionysian, right?
Yeah.
It's like pretty clear. It's actually like Apollonian as well. But those are two aspects of the same god anyway. But it's like Zeus is holding the lightning bolt, right? And he's the only one that can wield it. And if you think about it, electricity, excuse me, maybe I shouldn't say that. He's the god of life, right? So if you think about it, Dionysos, who's firstborn, thrice begotten king, he's the son of Zeus, right? So basically, he's the only one that has the power to wield the lightning bolt of Zeus, right? Or Zeus, pronounced properly. But if you think about that, that's like his, that kind of indicates his mastery of life, right? Mastery of being able to resurrect people, you know.
Yeah, he's like yoked in the creation between life and death, and so he's able to master the flesh, consume flesh. Like it's like a kind of a majestic god, because he like eats life and also makes life. You know, it's this thing.
Right, and he's also Zeus's father. So firstborn, thrice begotten, Bacchic king.
So like the son of God is the father of God, right?
Yeah, because Zeus is not the first god.
Saturn, right? And even if I'm not even sure Saturn is the first god, but Saturn and Uranus are the mother and father of the gods. Cronus, right? I do the Roman thing. Here's what's also funny: Croatians continue on believing Roman mythology, Greek mythology. It's like the Peloponnese mythology that still exists, just sort of subdued into a Catholic culture. But so we would refer to things like, I would call these things, instead of Zeus, I would say Jupiter, right? I refer to Zeus as Jupiter internally, and I refer to Cronus as Saturn, right? And that, but like, you know, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
One thing I would add.
I mean, I'm
That is that the lightning bolt, at least in the Hindu pantheon or the Vedic pantheon, is actually the bones of a rishi who gave up his life on the request of the gods, like at will. So it's like his spinal column. Like you'll see sometimes you see a picture of like a spinal column with like a rib cage. It's like the bones of a rishi, of a seer named Dadichi. You could look up Dadichi if you wanted. But because his bones are so imbued with Shakti from his austerities. So, the gods actually go to him and they request his help in order to slay this giant named Vritra. And in like the Vedic kind of pantheon, Vritra's, you could say he's like a drought demon. Like so, like Indra's going to come and slay the demon of drought and then provide the rains. Right.
It's pretty interesting.
So he strikes him down with the lightning bolt.
But I think there's something also about the division of, like, so once you have, so from Dionysus and Zeus, right? So Bacchus and Jupiter.
Dios, Zeus and Dios is also the sky, right? So Dios is also the sky god, right? Dios and Zeus, right?
Right.
So
which is like Deus, right? Deus.
Indra, right? Dios, the Vasu.
But I mean, the loss of the feminine is really noticeable when you, and so at one point you have Artemis and you have all these like goddesses in the Roman pantheon as well, And it made me think of Fortuna, because Fortuna is kind of like Lakshmi, right? If you think about it in a lot of ways, because Lakshmi, what would
Like
you
the
say
word
about
luck,
Lakshmi?
like the word luck and Lakshmi are
Yeah.
connected, like Lady Luck, right? Goddess
Right.
of fortune.
So, but yeah, what do you think about? I mean, what do you think about that also? Because like the decimation of Lakshmi, and who is Lakshmi? How important is
How is she
she?
decimated? She's not decimated. She's
No, I mean the West.
Oh, I think I would ascribe it like kind of materially to the rise of monasticism. Like as the monastics gain power through, various like sexual restraint practices, then they like push out the women essentially. And they give up on the sexual magic that uses sex. And like there's like a magic you could gain from not using it, and then there's like a magic you could gain from using it. So like I think the one where you don't is in some ways initially easier, later it becomes harder to maintain. But
Right.
yeah,
Just,
I think the rise of monasticism also in like Buddhism, the same thing happens. Like Buddha had like female nuns, but then like the male monks kind of like pushed them off to the periphery in a way.
so yeah, somebody just commented correctly. I don't have the chat up, but I was gonna say, yeah, Lakshmi is Aphrodite. It's not exactly one for
Not in
one.
the Indian tradition, though. But so in Indian tradition, Venus is Shukracharya. That's the guru of the Asura. So Venus is masculine, and but the and also the god of in Hinduism, Kamadev is masculine also. Although there's a female rati, sexual pleasure. Actually, he has four.
I think there's a big thing also, though. This was with Uranus, right? So that Uranus is the mother, and Saturn becomes the father. Saturn becomes the father, but Saturn is a feminine, and Uranus is androgynous. And so from the cesarean cutting open of the womb of the father, it's like a seahorse daddy. That's what Cronus is. So there is an inversion of the masculine and the feminine, which I forget who it was, but I was talking to someone about Tamil astrology and the idea that the cycles have inverted, or there was a change in the cycles at some point, and so this changed the masculine and feminine, like they were switched in a lot of things. So I could see that also being a thing. But with Lakshmi, isn't she she's a veneration of the mother goddess, but what does that mean, right?
It just depends what tradition you're interpreting her. Like the tantrics would interpret Lakshmi in various ways. Even there's different types of tantrics, right? So there's like tantrics who follow Shaiva, tantrics who follow Devi, right? So in like the Devi Sadhaka's Lakshmi, like they have like Raja Lakshmi, but she's generally associated with Vishnu, of course.
Right. That's the thing. So isn't she kind of like? Isn't
Of,
she the ideal? Could I call her the ideal veneration of the mother goddess then? Because she's the supreme goddess for Vaishnavism. I mean, she's the supreme consort of Vishnu.
I wouldn't say. I'll let Nowl answer, but I wouldn't say so.
In what tradition? What are you talking about?
Just in general, I mean, it's the idea in the idea for Vaishnavism, for Vishnu. I mean, she's the divine consort of Vishnu. Does that not put her at? You don't put that.
Yeah, she's equal. She's coterm. Well, okay, it depends on which Vaishnavism again. But like so in Siddhanta means in conclusion, all the Vishnus are equal, right? And then some people have like a flavor preference for different forms of Vishnu. Like I prefer Krishna based on some particular flavors. And then I would put Radha, who is the goddess.
But one could put Lakshmi as a.
Oh yeah, Lakshmi is like general, like Vishnu Tattva. Like Vishnu Tattva means thatness, like Vishnu thatness, like ontology. Like Lakshmi is ontologically like the general goddess for Vaishnavism. Yeah, she's like ontology. She is Vishnu. Like
so I've noted you don't, but you're not saying to worship her.
No. Here, okay. So like, if you go into like Sri Vaishnavism, which would be like the older Vaishnavas, like they're still in South India, like you mentioned Tamil Nadu and stuff. Like, some of them will say that she is coextensive, coterminous with Vishnu, and others will say she's a special jiva. So that becomes similar. Jiva means a living entity for those who don't follow this terminology, but coterminous means like she goes as far as Vishnu does, which of course is everywhere. And then coextensive, same thing. It's like another gloss for the same, like all extensive. Brahma means, that which extends outward, like which wanders, which goes out and expands everywhere. So she's coterminous and coextensive for the, I believe, the southern sect of the Sri Vaishnavas. And then for the northern sect of the Sri Vaishnavas, she is, no, I'm getting it wrong. One of those two schools. See, I'm not in that school. So one of those two schools treats her as like a special living entity, and then the other school treats her as God. So it's similar, like with the Catholics venerating Mary, kind of like as the mother of God.
Totally.
I would say the Vaishnavas are going further and saying she's God.
Yeah, like Sophia, like the Kabbalistic.
Now James was going to talk from like a tantric perspective, like that. Where Lakshmi may not be the center of the tantra.
Yeah, go ahead, James. I mean, I'm curious about this because the idea of the wife of God, that seems pretty relevant to all this, like Asherah, right? The wife of Elyon. Seems like it.
I don't know too much about Asherah, but it's, it depends. Like, so like I know it through Aphrodite, right? And Lakshmi has basically all the qualities of Aphrodite plus a few, right? Or it maybe not it's not one for one for sure. But basically, like for Aphrodite, Aphrodite is really the god. She's the goddess of attraction, right? And I think it's understandable and it's pretty natural, but it's somewhat of a mistake to apply just like base level attraction, love and attraction to that. So like if you speak of these things like only in terms of like sex or something, you're kind of making a big mistake, because if you make that mistake, then Aphrodite is just about beauty, which is symmetry, and attraction and sex, right? She's the goddess of genitals and everything. And also she indicates the lover. Well, if not to, yeah. So, it's all those qualities, but if you think about it, it's really like beauty as a concept is something a lot more vast, right? So you could say God is beautiful, right? Divinity is beautiful. So if you have a strong force of attraction towards these real things that are actually beautiful and actually contain in a non-dependent form of beauty, then you have an attraction to God, and that's a divine thing. So through Aphrodite alone, seeking union, seeking love, right, between an object of your desire or your lust or your affection, that can take you all the way to higher levels of devotion, like all the way to God. So it's not like, and that's pretty much each deity, right? You can do that. So,
but it does seem like there's something about like the tippy top. Like there's something about Vishnu. There's something about the idea about being at the source with the husband or the father or the mother, right? And we often hear about the father because that's the thing that kids are like, oh yeah, I go the straight. But the mother seems like something that's hidden, right?
Well, interestingly, I want to say something here to connect with what James is saying regarding, and this actually connects to you, Andres, is that all those things you're talking about, attraction and beauty, those are actually, interestingly, those are applied to Krishna, which is because Krish means to pull. And actually, interesting, the na suffix is also the source of the ma. So this is like the same suffix that you'll see in karma or dharma, like this ma, like it's like the, what do you call it? There's a particular grammatical term for it. It has a particular name for that suffix, but Krishna is like the mother of pulling. He's the most attractive person. And then beauty, like he's known for his, like, so there's, Bhagawan has 6 opulences. Like Bhagya is a name for the goddess of fortune, right? And Bhagawan is the husband of the goddess of fortune, or he who possesses the goddess of fortune, right? He who possesses fortune. So
the suffix "a" like in Verda or
ma, like mother.
Yeah. So you got the long "a" for like a wise person of respect. Right. It's like an honorific title. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. The Vant suffix is increasing an honorific title, of course. But it's interesting because the pulling and the beauty and devotion actually are being applied to God here. So, but I also like what you said, James, about how each deity also does contain the other deities in that aspect, although something is being emphasized.
And I think there's a thing about creation where it's like, it's going to, like, let's say you're a parent and your kids are going to do drugs. You'd rather them do it in the house. So you create a deity, you create a thing for them to, like, all right, you can do that. Worship me through that way, through this. Just don't do that to me in my living room. Let me in my space be my own, like, venerated, like, divine self. And I think that we see that often, like, with also Aphrodite, like you mentioned, a lot of people connect it with a kind of a ritualized sex magic. I guess that's also true of Lakshmi. That's also true in the East, but it's not, I think, the fundamental, like you said. It's kind of a misunderstanding of terms. So looking at the word Asherah, which I'd connect because Asherah was the wife of El Elyon, the wife of God, like for the Judeo-Christian and Brahmic tradition, up until they started smashing the figurines, right? They had all these fetishes of happiness, and that's kind of what Asherah means, right? It actually kind of translates poorly to the fetish of happiness, but we don't use these words right today, right? Like a fetish is anthropologically, it's a magical thing that's used for realization of dream into reality, to manifest something, right? It's something connecting you to the spiritual realm. And also, the Hebrew word they're using for happiness is actually more like a word that means to do easily, or to make possible, to manifest easily, right? Like you're happy because you're able to make happen, which I think is also interesting, that it's maybe the talisman for realization or making things happen, which we connect with femininity, because from that there's birthing, and from seed to egg we have, life, right? So there's this alchemical transaction and product, right, from that relationship.
But that's the microcosm of that
right,
action, right?
The easy to see reflection, yeah.
Right. So like that's love under will, right? If you take that as like it in its mystical meaning, what you're doing is you're uniting opposites, right? That's the sexual function on the physical plane, which is the lowest, right? But the mind doesn't have limits per se, by like Curly talks about species, right? Not being limited by species. The mind can achieve union with any object of its love, right? So like fetish, right? Attraction, things, you choose what these objects are, right? Or if you have less will, less control over it, they can be sort of chosen for you. But there's there's one main object that should be like, the crux of your love, which is it's really union with God, right? So like you could think of love as samadhi, right? And that's like the union of an object of your focus, right? So chastity, if you apply it to this metaphor, chastity or abstinence is really just concentration, right? So if you can have chastity towards an object of your concentration, you're not distracted in any way from that object, and eventually what happens is a marriage between those two things, where there's a union, right? And you could say, I mean, it's really better to look at it as math, that two become one. So things that were previously divided, they become united. And, that's like I understand a lot of things through the Thelemic writing. So it's helpful to like have these phrases, right? I'm divided for love's sake, for the chance of union, right? That's the situation of duality, right? It's
The restraint of to bounce back on what you're saying previously, the restraint of the sexual energy is sort of like a austerity, right? And that leads to samadhi. So that's like explaining the restraint side of it, right? But then like I guess part of the I'd be like explaining sort of like the beginning side of the restraint, but then I haven't really practiced the sex magic, but I can understand that it's also the same principle, but just being tested, like the restraint of the consciousness in the act.
Right. So I mean, if we talk about sex magic, right, that was really just concentration and the object of Sorry, my cat.
Every time you mention sex magic,
she's like, when do
so I have to go to the other room again? I know.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying, right? So there's like the restraint, right? Samyama is like samadhi is part of restraint, samyama, right? So like dharana dhyana samadhi constitutes samyama, right? Like the absolute restraint. So like in tantra they'll make use of sex, but like because it's sort of like
right, we can
putting the restraint under stress load, like under test. So it's kind of like theoretically it's more advanced, but I like most people aren't qualified for it really. A lot of people like jump into tantra.
Yeah, I try to avoid it because I mean people haven't really gone through the abstinence phase where like the sort of animalistic desires are like under control, where it's really not so much lust. You have more control over it. You have more will, and it's kind of like it gets so agitated by society anyway, right? So there's like kind of some natural virtue to societies that don't they don't have like their sexual function agitated by advertisers all the time, or libertinism or anything like that. But anyway,
well, like you're not gonna, if you can't practice abstinence, you're definitely not gonna be able to practice sex magic. So it's just not happening. Like if you're it's highly improbable. I mean, it's just say it's impractical, right? Like,
most people really
aren't going to do something harder if you can't do the easier thing,
right? And like that's also a microcosm, right? That's why like almost everybody that's talking about it, they're not successful at it. They're not really doing it, Like,
well, they're mostly businessmen. We can just set them aside.
I mean, this is like the problem with the problem with like orders, like the OTO or something. It's like by the time you get to that secret, you got to take a little blue pill to get it up. Like, why should it be in those hands? You know what I mean? Like they can't make use of it because it took too long to get there, right? But that's a criticism for that kind of stuff. But like regardless, if you cannot control your mind, you know, like it doesn't matter what you're engaging in. There's like, you know, it's like a nail with 20 points, right? Like it's not a good nail, right? It's not going to do its one
It's
job.
dull, right? Like it's not one pointed. It's not sharp.
It's not what exactly.
Well, here on the other side, though, if you can control your mind, the sex magic isn't going to really. I have a hard time.
Well, look, yeah, let's put it to bed. If you cannot hold it and never throw your confetti, we'll say, right? Then you're not doing it, right? If you cannot if you cannot have no sense of self, where you have absorptive samadhi in the act that does not reference your animal self at all, then it's not actually a holy act, right? And if you cannot bring your partner, let's say your partner is female, if you cannot bring them to their, you know, point of release, and, you know, give them an experience, then it's not happening.
Well, I would say bring them into the meditative state also. Like, what will be the point of doing this with like a mundane person anyway? Exactly. Then the criticism. This is why, going back to what Andreas was saying about like, why did this, you know, female thing kind of, why is there so much separation in the sexes there then, and like the hiding of the esoteric?
I mean, because, you know, it's God's wife. He's like, stay away from my wife. Don't put my wife's name in your mouth.
Keeping Tom, you know, don't be like a prisoner with a magazine in the jail.
God played by Will Smith in this movie.
Woman.
So I'll put it this way, right? Material world, matter, right?
Mother,
related to the word mother, right? So like, if you look at like the Egyptian creation story, it's like, or most creation stories, it's like this vat of primordial ooze, like slime, like creatures of the slime, right? That's like before light, right? That's like the material world. It's blind and dumb, and dumb as in there's no senses to perceive itself. It's just chaos, right? So like, it doesn't mean that women are this way. Yeah,
we're kind of like talking to men here in a way.
Yeah, and I don't mean it to be that way, you know, like, because honestly, quite honestly, women have much stronger tantric potential and spiritual potential than men. They just don't have the same natural will to conquer, and people are diverse. They're infinitely mixed in these qualities, but like, if you separate the qualities to where they're unadulterated, this is kind of what these mythologies mean. They're not actually people, you know. Zeus isn't going around raping people, right? This is like, you know, it doesn't mean rape. It means that this conscious principle. Yeah, it's not Jeff Goldblum going around, you know, like.
Well, here's the thing here. So this is why I think that with the rise of monasticism, it's just so much easier to argue the case that if you can't control your mind, you're not going to succeed in the sex magic. And if you can control your mind, what's the point of the sex magic? So then it's kind of like, then
I feel like also the people that are really good at sex magic can't have normal sex lives, you know, ever again.
They don't.
Like Taoist
have orgasms
for young ladies. Like,
yeah.
It's like, not your standard bearer, you know.
Yeah, let's make it right. Let's make it incredibly unsexy.
And grow those eyebrows, bro.
To the
grow like long eyebrows down here.
I should do the D'Artagnan like you, man.
This is, I'm like the I don't know, like Mayor Baba now.
You got the like Dali going on. But yeah, I mean, to make it really unattractive to the like, you know, the like chaos magic Kumars or whoever, right? You don't have an orgasm, right? It's not like it's not that type of party, right? So
You're like sublimating the energy to like arrive at the cosmic order of like duty and like righteousness, which is like not what people are trying to get into when they're trying to get jiggy in the sex magic justification.
No, I think some people are. A lot of people are like, I just want to write something. I'll just like think about my hands, and then my energy goes to my hands so they can write. You know, that's a thing. It's pretty common, I think, now. I don't know if that's
it's
really
right.
what you should be doing with it, though. I think a lot of people are kind of.
right.
The problem also is when
Not everybody ought to write.
you're. A lot of the time, you might like ascend your crown without grounding yourself. I think that's usually what's happening. It's like either you're not doing. Most people are just like lead weight with lead in their water, grounded and tied to their cities. But some people, they get so high chakra'd out, they're just like, boom, just like Kundalini spilling in a room wherever they walk around. And then, you know, they're not grounded. They didn't do the grounding. They don't do the sadhana.
So let's talk about Kundalini for a second. Kundalini, like most people
Don't look at me like that, Nowl. I saw that. I know what you're thinking.
Ahi Kundalavat, like the coils of a serpent.
He's like, I've known you for a few years. All right, sorry, James. Go.
Wait, what did I do? You say something more, Andres. What did I?
No, it's all right.
No, I don't know.
He might agree with me on this, but so like I was saying to you, Andreas, like I really wish that the West would totally forget the word, right? That and chakras, because it's so
Chakra.
chakram, wheel, right? So
Yeah, but if you say snake wheels, people look at you even weirder.
snake wheels, yeah, you could say serpent power. That's
Kundala is like the coil. Kundala means coil.
Oh, right. Okay.
Ahi is a snake, right? Ahi Kundalavat. Kundalavat, like possessing. Vat means to possess. Kundala.
Pull that snake through your wheels like a washing board. You know, bro?
I don't think people are actually getting to their crown chakra. I think they're actually fully in the root chakra. And in order to release that, you know, you have like basically like eating, sleeping, mating, and like defending yourself. Essentially, you got to slacken those just to go up one level from like a solid earth element to like a more watery fluid. You're already getting mystic cities if you move up one chakra.
You're giving way too much credit. It's like you're not getting through those grunties, you know?
Yeah, no, people are really very few people actually awaken their Kundalini. They start like just kind of their mind wandering off and like seeing things, and like their imagination starts.
That's another word I'm worried about is awake, right? Because people say woke now, and it's all. I don't want to lose the words. I just
you could just
wish
say
people.
Bodhanam, Buddhi,
It's in the right direction.
To awake.
I feel like it's at least a facade of the right thing, and if we lose the words, I'm not sure what we're gonna do.
Use the Sanskrit. Bodh.
Yeah.
Bodhana, awakening. Bodhana.
Right.
And teach people to like etymology. Yeah.
Like your Sanskrit.
So like
proto-linguistics.
Maybe I'm being too serious, but like I don't know. I like these things. I really loved hearing that. Like when I first started hearing that, like, you know, being awake, or like being like the first time I heard the word woke, I was like, oh, you know, maybe it's happening. Maybe people are like opening up to the fact that there's like so many untapped facts to the body, life, consciousness, and all this stuff. But the problem is you have to look at these things in a way where who you are, what you are now, most definitely has to change, right? You don't bring the subjects down to yourself. You have to do things that you've never done before, you probably never would have done, and you have to be properly motivated with pure aspiration towards these things and good faith, right? That will bring you to these things in a genuine fashion, that will make you go through I don't know, we'll say the desert, right? That will make you go through these periods of dryness, right? Of chastity, of abstinence or impotence, right? Where nothing is fun, right? You have to understand that all those little things that you enjoy are weak joys, right? That is not ecstasy, right? No drug you've ever taken has come close to ecstasy, right? Bliss is not just feeling good. It is absolute incredible intoxication by every means of the word, right? At such a deep level that you never forget if you touch on it for a second, right? Do you know who else is not an alcoholic, right? That wine is actual bliss. It's divine bliss, right? So that you have to think to yourself, right? You should know that you don't know, right? You should know that you don't know what these things are. And either you have a guru that gives you a taste for these things, that shares his realization or his experience, gives you a drop to where you can take that and experience it and follow it, you know, either have it motivate you where you follow it through the practices, or, you know, draw you deeper and deeper into that experience yourself. Or I mean, some people have what can only be explained through merit, right? Through like being a practitioner in a life before, or just, you know, being a good person does this, right? If you are very charitable, if you're a good person, if you're a very chaste person, right? Very pure person, these sorts of experiences happen for you a lot easier. Nature likes that for some reason. And you know, you have a spontaneous experience, right? I think a lot of people do experience that one, but I think it gets adulterated by culture in a way, right? So they might seek it through, you know, drugs or something, or people speak as though they know what you're talking about. So like somebody will have an experience where, like, you know, I felt this thing go up my spine and, like, you know, top of my head tingled and all this stuff, and that's great, that is wonderful, that's what you want, but that's not Kundalini, right? That's not Kundalini, right? um
Well, I mean, Kundalini is Durga. She's like a divine entity.
right.
Like if you actually get Kundalini, like a female goddess will like come in your room, like stand before you, and like, what do you want, my son? Like,
You better
like
try to shake her hand, you
in
know.
your face, like,
Yeah.
take something from me. You
Like
know,
what? And like quite
not really going to that level.
right.
Actually, there's too many, especially with the internet now. There's just too many other things for people to engage in that are like pseudo intellectual or like pseudo self-realization, or like, you know, they're just artistic, which is good, but they're just like, everybody's trying to be a jack of all trades, so you don't get like that many masters anymore, you know.
Well, yeah, you get the, like,
Masters are less in number.
you get like spiritual entertainers, right?
Well,
Like
you,
Alan,
not only that, but like there's like the whole, so okay, you want somebody who's experienced the thing, obviously, otherwise they have no idea what they're talking about, but you also want like a scholar, somebody who like knows how to explain it. So like, but you'll find like scholars who will just like read books all day but like don't practice, or you'll find like people who had like spontaneous experience and then are just like reminiscing on it over and over. But then like you don't find people who are like continuously going deeper and deeper, and like
yeah,
scholarship and the experience, like going back and forth and like churning it like a dynamo. Like you just don't find that thing very often. And when you find those people, that like, they don't really take students easily. You kind of have to like little bit violate their privacy and almost force yourself like humbly into their presence, you know, to like sort of like, hey, I need you, you know,
yeah,
help me. You know, they're not like usually out there promoting themselves. You know, there's like so many mega gurus. They're all mostly ridiculous, you know, just
yeah.
clowns. Worse than payasos, really, not even clown. They're like fucking clown, you know.
Yeah. It's it's actually insulting. And I'll say why, because these things are accomplishments. Like if these things aren't spontaneously happening for you by just wonderful merit, which means that you did the hard work at some point in time, it's hard work. It's really hard work. And so like the word for it is exertion, right? You have to exert either your will, or you either need will, discipline, or or maybe some type of talent, right? Or love. You have to be extremely motivated, right? To get through things, right? If you've had a taste, then love is easy. If you have a strong Mars, if you're a very martial person, actually, what's interesting is if you trained like your typical jock, right? In spirituality, they do so much better than a lot of this sort of, you know, yoga bro bliss junkies, right? Because it's like, I mean, I'm more one of those, you know, I want to hang out. I love music, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate like jocks actually for that reason. Like they don't have to think about why they're doing what they're doing, which is pretty amazing. You know, they can just do it.
Right. It's the willingness to experience pain. And actually, if you think about Mars, Mars cuts through to the truth of things, right? It's not an intellectual character where it can entertain all these different possibilities and rationalize things, which is useless anyway, right? Because a lot of these things are super rational, right? So Mars, if you think about it, it divides things, right? It's the god of the blood, which is the inner life of something, right? So it cuts down to expose the blood of something, right? That's like a really particular drive where, like, you know, you have like a deity like Horus, right? That's very much a Christ-like figure. You know, it's like a mixture between Apollo and Mars, but extremely martial, right? And that is a courtesy, right? Being a strict, martial, wrathful God, right? Wrath comes from love. Without love, wrath is not wrath; it's cruelty, right? It's just violence. There's no point in violence. There's no point to it, right? But wrath is like from a loving parent, right? You tried to cross the street and almost got run over because you didn't look both ways. The parent yanks you back
and screams at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that to my son.
It hurts you and makes you cry. So you
what are you doing? Don't die.
You may not get a second chance at doing that if you screw it up. So that's like having a wrathful deity, right? So like,
well, maybe I should reassess my parents then. They're both pretty
those are like
yelling people.
Yeah, those are like Dharma Devatas, you know? It's not like the one you want to hang out with per se, right? It's not like the god of your heart, the one that you want to be like in the deep core of your being. But it's the one that's going to get you there. And it's usually the one that you might be afraid of, right? So if you have, if you have cowardice in your soul, right? It means that you're afraid of a little bit of pain for the right things, right? And guess what? You don't get any prizes that way. You don't win the girl. You don't get the trophy, right? You're not the hero, right? So what do you want the most in that? You want somebody who's not just gonna lend you something. You want a coach. You want
yeah, you don't want like Santa Claus guru. You want somebody who's gonna like whoop your ass. Actually, I had a friend
somebody who's gonna whoop your ass.
Actually, Santa Claus did beat Saint Arius in the face, right? Like Saint
he slapped a heretic, right?
Real hard. Well, heretic. We're all heretics.
You don't want Coca-Cola Santa with like the tamed teddy bear, polar bears who are actually.
I mean, why do you think his suit's red, dude? It's like from the blood of children.
Oh shit!
Didn't it used to be black or something?
Wait, no, hold on. Let's go back to let's go back to the original.
Dad Moreau's wears blue in Russia.
We're getting very fatherly here. We're getting. Oh, let me. I will say. Actually, now I'm thinking of something fatherly. Somebody told me one of my like Sanskrit tutors told me, actually his father was really harsh. He was actually Croatian too, actually. Interesting. Father was a POW.
Yeah, I just found out that Al
both the
Capone came through
Nazis
Rijeka, and I was like, I got a whole new perspective. Yeah.
Wait, what happened? What happened, Andres?
Al Capone, because like back in the day, everybody thought Croatians were Italians. Like up until pretty recently, until Yugoslavia, they weren't
That's like
Yugoslavian. Yeah, we were basically Italians, and we spoke Italian. And so even in the old days, in the 1890s to the 1920s, most of the Croatians were speaking Italian. Kind of even today when we speak Croatian, we speak Dalmatian, which sounds more Italian, like it's more Roman and like the Count in Sesame Street is very Croatian sounding. But I forget what we were talking about. What was the deal? Why did we bring this up?
Oh, I was just saying because
Al Capone was from Rijeka. I mean, he's Sicilian family, but he went through Rijeka, and so it was a Croatian thing. And so a lot of people don't get that. I think that it's all just tied
Are you
together.
100% Croatian, both your mama and your dad?
No, my mom's family's Spanish, and like Fitzgerald, which is like Irish, but it's Norman.
Norman Irish, interesting. No, he was saying that because his dad was like a POW of both the Nazis and the Russians.
Yeah, that's what happened to my great uncle, and it was bad. They starved him so bad. Yeah,
so he's really hard on his children, but then his son is such a badass. Like my son's tutor is such a badass. But he told me that like a father's job is to make your child's life as difficult as possible. Like put like infinite obstacles, like just.
I'll remember that. I think
I don't
that's
know
a good.
If it's true though, but he insists upon it. I don't know. Maybe it's a way for me to.
I think it's kind of true because it's like if you think about it, the world's going to do that anyway, and if you can pick the ones that they have, they're probably even better. And so if you just give a kid a world without suffering, then they don't turn out that well when they get hit with their first, like even mediocre challenge, right? So if you're picking all the challenges and you're making the challenges harder and harder, and you're remembering that it's a kid, it's not like some weak plebeian adult. You know, this is a kid. Like kids are malleable, stronger, better in every way, right? So, you know, I think a kid can survive just about anything an adult can't. Like I don't want to put it to the test, but you know what I mean. Like you can probably make a kid pretty strong that way compared to like a lot of kids today.
Yeah.
He's only a boy. Don't. I hate that. I hate that whole thing. Like they don't need to know this. Like they're just children. Like no, that's not true.
Yeah, I gradually introduced the facts of life. But so the mother seems to have taken a hit. You know, the mother goddess has taken a hit. Do you think it's because of the men, or is it because of the women, or is it something political?
Well, I mean, there's clearly like still secret female cults. We talk about Aphrodite, and we know that like the British and like the French and everything like this, like the Da Vinci Code world of people that kind of have their cults, and even the Jewish people having suppressed Asherah, the Shekinah symbol, and having the menorah, which the menorah represents Asherah. There still is this esoteric femininity. But like I said at the beginning, I kind of think there's something to this divorcee Zeus thing. I think that the divorcee Zeus thing is what people worship, and it's all kind of Gnostic, because in the Gnostic sense, you've got Yaldabaoth. Maybe Yaldabaoth is kind of like Zeus in this picture. I don't want to push it too far, but it's possible. And he's lost his wife, right? We've lost Sophia.
Well, let me just get this out of the way. There's no divorced deities in the Hinduism. They do squabble a little, but they like get on pretty well. And also the female isn't suppressed at all in terms of, at least in terms of the theology, because you know, like half of India is like Devi worshippers, you know, so like it's not even
but even isn't that kind of like, wouldn't that be kind of like if I said, no, like America isn't just for guns, half of the country is anti-gun. Like, yeah, there are people with different opinions.
Guns, you know.
I think people having opinions doesn't mean that there's a unanimous consensus.
But I'm just saying. So like, I'm just setting the Dharma traditions aside, since it doesn't seem to be much of a. Yeah, it's not, the esoteric is in plain sight, actually, in the East. Apparently, the problem is everything is esoteric in the East, because magic is permitted.
Right, so maybe it's harder to understand like what the point is or like what it's about.
No. There's definitely a point. I do think there's an attack on magic. I think James would agree.
Yeah, I really do think this. Yeah, I don't think I don't think people want you to be into Crowley in particular, right? They keep trying to tie him to Hitler and the Nazis, when really actually he was the opposite. He was kind of the one that gave, Winston Churchill, whatever you think of him, gave him this symbol, right? Which is V for victory, or Apophis the destroyer, right? And that was like a psychological, FU to Hitler, and he knew exactly what that meant. Maybe Churchill didn't know what it meant, but maybe he did, but
Crowley seems like Churchill seems like the kind of guy who knew a lot more than. Do you ever do the Churchill diet, where you just drink like gin and tonics all day and smoke cigars?
I am right now.
It's basically an invocation ritual. Exactly. Yeah, like this is how he survived malaria and became an ascended, possessed. Yeah. Nothing like Crowley has not like anytime people talk about like the evils and the atrocity, like Crowley has nothing on Churchill.
Churchill single-handedly killed like 4 million Indians by just denying like boats of rice after like mismanaging like India and like
yeah. I think he was like, let me out there and I'll just hit him with a stick myself. Is the way Churchill was.
Cash crops instead of food, replacing like food with like tobacco and indigo and opium, and tea. Think about it, just imagine just saying, okay, you guys have run out of food. Like USA is going to like send boats of like, we have surplus grains and rice. We'll send it to India. And Churchill's just single-handedly like, no, they breed like rabbits. And like just single-handedly ends up killing like 4 million people just by himself, like without anybody else.
Yeah. So I feel like Crowley was not as bad as Churchill.
Churchill was horrible.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Yeah.
Other than the kind of
choice words about him.
Well, what about we talked also about this like kind of like an original like point, and we maybe talked about Deus, this idea of kind of
Asherah, right?
Yeah.
I don't see. I'm not at all knowledgeable of. I need to study like proto-linguistics, but it just kind of looks like Asura a little bit. Or Asuri is actually one of the names of Devi, of the goddess, right? So, and then I'm just wondering if there's a connection. I need to like, if you can find some like PIE person, like somebody who studies like like I just study Sanskrit. I'm not like a PIE person, like a Proto-Indo-European linguistic expert. So I don't know Persian, or I don't know like Babylonian, or I don't know Greek, but like people who study all these things, maybe I wouldn't even be able to tell you if they're cognates, like, but somebody might be able to tell you, oh, actually these are the same root. But Ashur, it sounds pretty close, like Ahura Mazda, right, has been confirmed to be the same as Asur, but I don't know if Ashur is connected to Asura Mazda, so
you'd think Ashtart or Ishtar, Astarte. I feel like there's, they're pretty close. Seems like
Aesir, Asur, Ashur.
I'm a big fan of this. I think the idea that they're all kind of from one pre-flood origin point, and the stories get a little bit more diverse as they get more specific, or as people start to separate after. That seems like a thing. The idea that they're all one, the idea of the Elohim being a family, it kind of makes sense, and it is every worldwide belief structure that I can find. Basically everybody, like all. It's
no familial structure.
Yeah, it seems like there's a divine familial structure in like Africa and Polynesia, in Europe and everywhere. It's always this way, except for all of a sudden after the Judeo-Christian Abrahamic tradition gets to Greece and does this sort of divorced Zeus thing. That's what it looks like. I don't know exactly the progression, but that's what it seems like happens, because all of a sudden you have the shattering of faces, the shattering of statues. And I also wonder about, I wondered in your opinion too, like, what do you think because there's such a practicality to, like you were talking about sex magic for like so long because of this, it gets right into what makes us alive, what makes children into adults, and what we do. So what's the practicality of destroying the religious practice that is of worshiping the divine family, right? And taking away the mother from that?
what do you think the government makes of all these things? Like, it seems like before they're like, we're overpopulated, and now everybody's like, we're underpopulated, bring the people in. You know, like everybody's like, we need more people. You know, it's like the economics demands more people, and it's like, well, it's like, what do you think the government thinks of like antediluvian? Have you ever found any documents or like anything?
Yeah,
in, like,
of course. There's the Adam and Eve story. You know what I'm talking about? There's this, if you go to the CIA reading room, you can get the Adam and Eve story. And this was one of those suppressed papers from the 60s that finally came out. And even here, for a long time, it was like, I think they finally, I forget if it has all the pages even. You can get all the pages on archive.org because they have the rest of the missing pages. They might have finally updated the CIA reading room version because it was just so silly to not have all the pages. But this was all about kind of the idea of a pre-Diluvian flood myth from every culture tied together with all the science that they had at the time that shows that there were environmental disasters that ended in the extinction of things before. Some people call them yugas, right? There's other, some people call them periods or ages. The other thing is that they can predict another one would be coming and seemed imminent within the next century or so from 1960. They're like sometime in the next century.
So these guys have kind of an apocalyptic thinking. You think that's due to like they're maybe possibly being Christian or having this sort of orientation towards an eschatology?
Definitely, but also, I mean, and they're probably on cocaine, and they're in. It's the Cold War, right? So, like you're constantly like, what's gonna happen?
Without merit, their ideas without merit.
That doesn't mean that it's without merit at all, right? I think that the thing is they were at if you think of it correctly, these are stereotyping, profiling machines, and they're even using machines at this time, and they're looking at all the data they can. They're facilitated and refined for the purpose of looking for that thing. Granted, they might have some false positives. That doesn't mean they won't also show the broad range of probability of the next cataclysm. And it makes sense that we have micro cataclysms, which we're dealing with now, and we see all the time. We have like huge earthquakes.
They keep telling us about asteroids over and over, like it's supposed to be an asteroid.
Oh my God, have you seen Geostorm?
I'm not sure they're gonna keep talking. Is this something?
Bro, so I just saw this movie and I feel so dumb that I never saw this movie. Have you heard of Geostorm from 2017?
No.
So this movie's wild and it's free on YouTube. So like you guys should watch it. It has Gerard Butler, the Russell Crowe looking guy. Yeah, and basically like
I get him mixed up all the time with Russell Crowe.
That's what I'm here for. So this is like about natural disasters everywhere eventually lead to the United Nations hiring some super tech company to launch rockets up into the stratosphere and to build some sort of a Skynet, which when rockets are launched will be crashed into the Skynet. And not just rockets, but like asteroids or EMF or anything like that. Anything that hits will just be, it'll be consumed before it hits the planet. And we live then after that in this eternal Matrix-like sky kind of future where we're protected and the weather's controlled and they can make rain happen and they can stop snow. And it's all just sort of a controlled reality. Anyway, this is basically also some of the eschatologist ideas about the firmament, right? And that we live in a geocentric reality where all of these much smaller satellite systems that we think of as distant stars are actually closer. And maybe at some point they started to break down and some occult organizations went up and started to refurnish the firmament. So it's interesting that there's a movie about, this is a really mainstream. Disaster movies are like the ultimate mainstream movie, right? Like you can take your dog to see that movie, And
your kids can watch that movie.
I just realized that all the pictures I was trying to show you were DRM. And
do you think is this a thing of the past, or you think the government is still interested? Like, would they be interested?
Oh, of course. There's definitely
be interested in a podcast like this, like some dudes like just trying to piece it together.
I mean, a Skynet and
are they
Operation Star Wars?
Are they still interested in old stories?
Old stories, like, oh yeah, for sure. Well, this is from the 60s. I think at this point they know a lot more than that. And with AI, they've translated a lot of these things. I tend to think that most information, everything that's happening now, like 1997, 1989 to 1997, most everything, there's nothing new. Like this AI like that we have it's just scalable now. But they had an AI system that they were using already. So the idea that we're just using things that were tested in the 90s and that they've already got maybe even a window into the past and the future, right? Like the Operation Looking Glass, the idea that the internet was created so that they could have a window into the past and the future using computers that are like on for centuries so that they can connect from the past to the future and then they can send data back and forth. I could see that, man. I could see a lot of those things. And the other, also the linear accelerators being primer time cycles. So you can always restart a timeline from the time cycle. I mean, that's a big thing with the idea of Mandela effects. If there's anything beyond planned media manipulation and psychological operations where they're changing the titles of books.
Have you
Could
found
also-
an old copy of Berenstain Bears?
Yeah, there are, and so people make excuses for that though. They'll be like, "Oh, well, maybe this was like misprinted," you know. But yeah, they do.
Did you find Shazam? Tell me you
No.
found.
But I that's the one I'm looking for because I was the kid in Shazam, and so like that
Really?
ruined my life. You know that they took me out of that.
You were going to be in that movie.
Right now.
What? You have a copy of Shazam?
You are Shazam.
So wait,
Is there
hold on.
Shazam? Are you guys? I have to see if I'm not the only one seeing this, but around you didn't say anything last time, Nowl, but you got some like wicked strong. Okay, we'll do Shazam, but you got some wicked strong orbs. Like,
Oh, there's just the sun comes through the leaves and the it filters through the window.
right. don't dead me, bro. Come on,
Glorious.
it's fine. Anyway,
Well, I know that Noel, you're supposed to go take your son to a lesson. Do you
I
still have
still got
time?
a couple minutes. I still got a couple questions for you, Andres. So
Okay.
so when I was in Berkeley, I could see like some of the kind of like grant proposals and stuff were like in the South Asia studies. And I know from just, reading up on like the grants, like when you apply for a grant and stuff, you'll see like Title VI grants, like where's the money come from? Like, oh, it's coming from the Defense Department. Or like you'll see like they're like partnering, sometimes it's oddly with like a Christian organization. Maybe there's like missionary NGOs who have like interest in like that part of South Asia. Maybe they're interested in Bangladesh, etc. Or like you'll see, but it's like guys in the form of like energy, like we're gonna like make some power plants, but like there's actually like a Christian like mission or something
Yeah,
there.
that's the way to do it, man. And we
But,
should
like-
like sell carbon credits. That's my new thing.
Yeah, I hope there's not. I heard talk of blue credits and gold credits now, and I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah, the blue credits are the Elon Musk credits. The gold credits are the Schwab credits.
Schwab's going after the sun, and Elon's going after the ocean.
Yeah, something like that.
But like so I just didn't step up to the plate. I didn't really want to be like involved like geopolitically. But did I miss out on anything? Is there anything like?
I mean, that's definitely the way to go because, like, with the rest of these places, it's a tax-free NGO able to go in and do some philanthropic thing with crazy amounts of money that somebody can't spend in the United States because of tax reasons, right?
I could have gotten a grip of cash to do like pet projects.
Like $5 million, like, because this is what a lot of these things do is like once they figure out that you're reliable for what they need you for, which is to make sure that there's infrastructure for their corporations to come in and build in those places, then you become really useful because they need a community for that to happen in, right? So you help provide their stability.
So you're not going to like offend like the locals.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that they're actually the idea of figuring out how a corporation can work. Like, and I've met people that aren't evil that want this. Like, how can I get my business in another country? Like, I should go through a middleman. Who's the best guy for that? Probably like a noble religious person that is educated, that is connected in between the community. This is not historically unusual, right? Like, that's probably
I'll speak more about it later. But I was just wondering because, like, generally when in order to try to be good, you always have like, it's like Johnny Cash said, you like keep a close watch on this heart of mine,
Yeah, it's true. I mean, then the bigger the corporation, the easier it is to bring in evil, and then they have lead toy paint and whatever
Yeah, if you don't want to be part of exploitation, like what if you want to be part of intelligence for good, not for like exploitation, but like for good, you know?
I think it gets really complicated when you try to figure out, like, because intelligence for good really just means distributed data to the right places. Now, what do you define as the right places? Who do you define as responsible enough to have information? And so it's like, do you keep it a secret or do you share it with everybody? Tends to be their choices. Keep it a secret with a few people or one person or with a club or a cult, or just share it with everybody and hope that they're able to keep each other at bay. I'm more of the, I usually like that one better. That seems to have worked out way better than you'd think it would.
Oh, keeping things secret?
No, I mean telling everybody. I think that the keeping things secret thing
leads to
that actually works better than I'm surprised how well keeping secrets works.
It depends
the idea that you're able to, like, thousands of years later, they're like, oh, we found the book. That's pretty cool. But for the most part, that surprises me. I think that a giant, like the Hackers movie or the Bill and Ted movie, where like, hey, every TV in the world is like, you're watching me now. Here's what they did. Like, I like that. I'm a big fan of everybody has the data. I don't think it works as well. I mean, it never works though. Every time that I used to be a truther. And I remember Ron Paul, and I thought that was such a cool thing. And I figured if you just tell people about the truth, then they're going to want the truth. But there was Shepard Fairey's Obey t-shirts of Obama with PepsiCo, and of course, that was going to sell better. I just didn't understand that at the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like the word being awake, you know, got kind of harnessed.
Yeah. And I want to take that back. I want to take woke back.
It's like they want us to be asleep. So
God help you if I might have to call this podcast the Woke Podcast. That might be our new name or something like that, along that line.
Like
being awake is
proto woke.
Yeah,
this is like
being awake to the slavery of an identity, right? You know, that if you're defining yourself by an identity, that you're limiting yourself, right?
Well, if you wake,
I feel like that's a quote from
they don't get enough sleep.
Wayne's World. I feel like that's a quote from Wayne's World or something,
right? If you wake
like
up
wearing Wayne's shirt,
right?
You got a good Garth thing going on right now,
yeah.
I do think that the thing also that's weird is like the shattering of cultures, right? So like getting rid of Asherah in the West was, for the Abrahamic traditions, getting rid of all the idols and all the symbols and things like that. So you're like, look, you really don't need to know what is going on in the social lives of the gods. You really should just be worshiping the Godhead as a thing. We'll call it Yahweh, right? Like, we'll just worship but instead of thinking of it as there's the Elohim, which are parts of, you know, this is him and her, the Eloi. No, this is just the Yahweh, right? That I feel like that happens. And do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? Like, you like the specificity of the Veda, I'm sure.
Well, I like how the system fits together. I'm here also to learn. So, unfortunately, even though I studied theology, like I spent almost the entire time studying like Sanskrit grammar, and then like the esoterica of like epistemologies relating to like Vedic approaches and methods. So like I'll send you my paper. You like to read. You want to read my master's thesis?
Yeah.
You could give it a read. I think it's about to be published by ProQuest.
You got to email me that too.
Oh yeah.
I'll make a AI audio of my voice reading it and send that to Garth.
That would be hilarious. I should but yeah, what was your question? I missed it. I somehow got distracted by my own ego. But what were you saying? Something about
I guess just like the specificity of all the things that go together you like, versus they shattered it, they destroyed it, so that you have to, like in the West, we're kind of in the process of recreating our own existential idea, right? Like,
well, whatever it does, it should be done.
There's a white boy mistake.
Slowly, because as Hunter S. Thompson said, when progress goes too fast, it goes haphazardly, right?
But there was a white boy mistake in there. Wait, tell me that, Garth. What was it?
Mistake.
Yeah. So I think like the what I was saying, the white boy mistake is like conflating things as being the same, like trying to find the common denominator between things and saying that's what it is. So it's like reductionist, right? I think it's like this like chemistry minded, thing that I keep saying white people, but like, I'm just being facetious, whatever. But Western minds, they want to deduce things down to their essence, right? So they can understand what that is and make use of it. And this was kind of the whole mistake of perennialist philosophy, because they decided which books were important to translate.
Yeah, who
So they
decides?
right. So they kind of just by means of that, they kind of designed, either by accident or on purpose, the narrative of how these cultures are presented, like Taoism being atheist. It's not, Buddhism being atheist. It's really not,
Yeah, like which Buddhism?
which Buddhism exactly, right? So like, um, and then context gets lost. It's like the sort of pathless path stuff of Theravada, right? I mean, Nowl will correct me, so I like to say these things, but
Atlas that it just sounds a little bit more Zen or Tao or something.
well, like, it's like not focusing on a deity. It's not like, it's not the way it's spun today for Westerners, when they talk about it in like science and Buddhism groups or something on social media.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Oh, it's fun.
That's the scientists. Well, it's basically a co-optation by psychoanalysis to find a religion and to like get. Yeah, there's a whole like commercial production there where like you have all these like Buddhist magazines being edited by psychologists, and then they're like pathologizing like Zen Buddhism essentially, and then they're like, well, let's just get rid of Satori since it doesn't really work, and because
Right.
like, we see this master fell down with his disciple, and then
Right.
like they just focus on the pathology because that's what if their whole methodology list like leads them down this critical path. So like they're like shocked that they get a critical result. Like it's kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy. But
Right. And this ties back to one of the first things that I said, or one of the main things I said about how these things should go properly, because we should have these ideas of like, Kundalini, chakras, meditation, all this stuff, right? It can go better. It can go much better. But what is that thing? They're taking a philosophy and saying that it's amenable to my opinion. Like, how convenient. It already fits the opinions that I already had. Like, good job.
Yeah, they're just reading on their own predilections into the tradition. So they're like outsiders trying to like redefine the insider. They're like outsiders teaching insiders.
Yeah, it's like how wonderful. I already thought this
tradition.
anyway.
They're like usurping the voice of the tradition. Plus, they have the platform and the power structure and the broadcast and the consensus, and the money.
You know about Alan Liu?
Mm-mm.
My mom was a big fan of Alan Liu. Alan Liu was a Zen rabbi. I like this guy. So he was really he was an atheist Jew who didn't like, this is it, I think. Can't find him. Yeah, that's it right there. Atheist Jew, didn't like religion very much, got into yoga and Buddhism at like his like New York community center. Decided to take it further, was studying because he's kind of intellectual, went to Japan, started studying under a Zen monk, spent like 10, 15, 20 years, I think it was. And then they were like, okay, to complete your thing, you need to go back. There's like your last thing. You need to go back and become a rabbi and complete your rabbinical training, because that's like, and he was like, what? Because he's not religious, but they're like, then he had a whole new approach of how to look at his own thing, which helped him look at his thing, which helps him see Zen Buddhism better, but also see the parallels of the Ein Sof, the no thing, all of these parts of the primordial chaos, right? That I think that we should ingratiate ourselves to.
What's his name again?
Alan Liu.
Lou.
Yeah,
All right, thanks.
kind of a cool guy. I can find a couple books of his that I could send to the thing there.
Mm.
But I think it's not always bad. I can tell you I agree with you on a lot of those levels though, because I'll think of like, Herman Hesse, right? And like Herman Hesse is like, oh dude,
Yeah, and
this is about me. And it's like, shut up, bro. Like it's like,
and
okay.
I'm speaking at from a syncretist point of view, right?
Yeah.
But
And I like Herman Hesse. I'm just saying,
yeah.
Oh, we lost
and,
Nowl.
and yeah, and like it's one of those things like, it's not bad. Like religions should, like the Tower of Babel type thing, right? Religions should understand where they agree, because like you can still say that the more important parts are where they're parallel, right? Like where they're going in the same direction, and where they relate to each other. um and that's like seriously important, because that shows kind of like the what's most worth the time, right? And the rest is kind of like it'll highlight kind of like what's the unique flower of each religion, right? Because they each have their own thing that they uniquely produce, right? But sometimes, like the real important conflicts are like with synthesis of practice, right? Some practices don't go together, right? Like if you are practicing Kundalini Kriya Yoga, right? There's other practices that you can't do, because it'll literally be bad for your body, right? So they don't mix together. So some of those things are pretty pretty important. So yeah, but there should be an effort to understand these things, and if there could be more understanding of these things in like the public lexicon, I think that would be good, because technology alone, right? Kind of the direction that we're going as a world, and society is going. Technology is not changing our inner worlds at all, right? Like we have we have better technology than any time we can remember historically. But we also have the most depressed, lost people who normally would be perfectly fine, but they don't really have like a central goal in life that's like naturally fulfilling, right? I mean, it's kind of like existential philosophy, like nihilist philosophy. It's kind of like you could say it's like the Advaita of the West, right? Except it doesn't have practice to it. There's no point to it, which means like you can do anything you want, and it has no meaning. And that's naturally that does not sit well with people, right? It's kind of an ill philosophy, right? So I don't know. That's kind of why like, statements like all modern philosophy is but a footnote to Plato, right? It's because in Plato you still see the presence of God, and you don't have to be a theist, but understand that there is also higher intellect, right? There's higher possibilities to the inner world of man, and that's important. That's like the baby in the bathwater, right? So it's not bad.
I think we lost Nowl, but I think he had to take his son to the the karate class. I think is what he's doing right now. I got a song for you though. Hold on, check this out.
Started as a Brahmin, now we're here. Now we're here. Started as a Brahmin, now Sanatana Dharma becoming clear. Started as a Brahmin, now we're here. Now we're here. Started as a Brahmin, now Sanatana Dharma becoming clear. Better ground yourself if you're gonna wake your Kundalini. Pull that snake through your chakra wheels.
You can see her from my cat dancing right now.
Those poor kids out there. Like, this is what they could be listening to. You know what I mean? We could take them so much further to so many better places.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty base. I got this one. This one. It's pretty good.
What program are you using for this?
Suno.
Suno.
Yeah, it's the best one, I think.
My dream. Like dream.
Ground yourself if you're gonna wake your Kundalini. Pull that snake through your wheels like a washing board. Started as a Brahmin, now we here. Started as a Brahmin, now Sanatana Dharma becoming clear. Agni's in my soul, fire's in my blood. Chant the Gayatri, let the mantra flood. Through chakras we rise, from Muladhara's gate to the Sahasrara, where Shiva seals our fate. Vishnu's in my veins, preserving the Dharma flow. Kali at my back, time to reap what you sow. Mahabharata, the battles in the mind, in a war. Aren't you known with this bow, in this cosmic lore? Started as a Brahmin, now we're here. Started as a Brahmin, now Sanatana Dharma becoming clear. Trimurti on my side, no fear in my stride. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva destroy, create the tide. Upanishads in hand, knowledge is my shield. In this karmic cycle, karma is the field. Brahman is the light, Atman is the spark. In the yuga's dark, will ignite the mark. Sanatana Dharma, eternal and pure. In the face of Maya, we remain secure. Started as a Brahmin, now we're here.
Is this a computer writing this? Or you wrote?
I added a little bit there, but they helped. Yeah, they did pretty good. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy if that's AI writing that.
You got to tell it what you want, man. Like you put in some. I gave it like some specific, like the big ones. Like started as a Brahmin, now we're here. You know, now the Sanatana Dharma. Wow, that's a tongue twister. Now the Sanatana Dharma is becoming clear. That is hard. That's a hard one right there.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
But all right, man, that was good. Let's do another one soon. Hopefully, Nowl will be back, and thank you for being here. That was cool, James.
Yeah, of course. One of these days, you'll tell me the esoteric side of Mormonism, because
I mean, we're doing it right now. All this stuff is it, really. I think what it is it's just that at the beginning, there was all just one thing, and then there's the Babylon Tower. So people have their different ways of looking at it, but you got to get back to source, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and only so much of that is clear. But yeah, I mean, any more, we can definitely do that. We'll do it soon. I'll do a ladder wave again really soon with Ladder Chat. We'll get you on.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thank you, man.